Chapter 4. Voice of the Beast.
Let me tell you a story. It was Midsummer's Eve in the year 1899. The moon was full over Bryn Mawr Hill in central Wales. A farmer was out with his dog. He was waiting for the animal which had killed several of his sheep. A gun was under his arm. In the moonlight, he suddenly saw the sheep run across the field. Something large and dark was following them, moving fast. He held up his gun and shot. The thing cried out with a terrible sound like a wolf and stood up on its back legs. To the farmer it seemed more than 3 meters tall. It was hurt, but it ran off on 2 legs down the hill into the woods. The farmer's dog turned and ran for home as fast as it could. The farmer shot his gun into the trees a few times and then followed his dog back. His face was white. He was cold and afraid. When he arrived home, he said nothing to his wife about the thing in the woods. But that night, he did not sleep. The next morning, the farmer's wife went into the village to do her shopping. Someone told her about something that had happened to the son of a rich family who lived near the village. Soon, everyone was talking about the young man. "What do you think?" the farmer's wife said to her husband when she returned. "The boy has shot himself in the leg. He was playing with his gun, and it went off by mistake. Really, he's nearly a man now. He's old enough to know better." The farmer said nothing, but only shook his head. After a while, everyone forgot about what had happened to the young man. Everyone except the farmer. He could not forget what he had seen on Bryn Mawr Hill. He noticed, too, that the young man had disappeared. No one ever saw him again. On the nights when he could not sleep, the farmer sat and wrote in a notebook. He wrote about that strange night on Midsummer's Eve. After he died, a few years later, his wife found the notebook. When the story came out, everyone said the old farmer had been completely mad. Of course, people did not think that the story was true. But by that time, the rich family had moved away and their large house was empty. Strangely, no one wanted to buy it. Why am I telling you all this? Well, I was that young man. After I was hurt, I traveled to that part of Europe which goes from Hungary in the east across Austria, Slovenia, and the north of Italy. There I lived with others of my kind, in the hills and mountains, until I was better. Then I went south to Greece. I visited Mount Lycaon, the place where Lycaon was changed into a wolf, the place where it all began. I was careful, hiding in woods all the time. I took people's sheep or goats to eat only when there were not enough wild animals. For many years I was not seen again, but then I started to get careless. I went to many places in Europe. A soldier saw me in Germany in 1988, outside a place called Moorbach. I know that people tell stories about this. But now I have returned. I have come back to the hills and old woodlands of Wales. This is my home, the right place, I think, to welcome in the new millennium.
Chapter 5. In the Black Dog Pub. "Let's try that one, shall we?" Charlie said. He was looking at a pub on the road going into the village of Llandafydd. They stopped next to a dirty old van which was outside the pub. In the back of the van was a sheep, which looked unhappily at them through the van window. They walked up to the front entrance of the pub. Charlie tried to open the heavy door, pulling first, then pushing it. It opened suddenly, and he almost fell inside. The pub wasn't busy, although it was lunchtime. Susie went quickly to a seat by a welcoming fire. Charlie walked up to the woman behind the bar and asked for 2 beers and a menu. The room was very quiet. A man at the bar watched as Charlie sat down opposite Susie. After a while, he turned back to the landlady behind the bar and started talking to her, speaking in Welsh. Susie and Charlie studied the menu, while the strange sounds of the foreign language made it hard to think. Looking up for a moment, Susie's eyes were caught by a picture on the other side of the room. In front of dark, moonlit hills, a black dog with strange red eyes was looking at her. As she studied the picture, a man who was sitting below it stood up. He walked slowly towards the bar with his empty glass. He looked across at Susie. He had dark, greying hair and very white skin, like a plant that has grown without light. She found herself looking into his clear blue eyes. She had an uncomfortable feeling that she knew him from somewhere. Suddenly, she didn't want to be there, in that pub, in Wales. "Same again, Richard?" the landlady said to the man. "Yes, please," Richard replied. "Problems, Tom?" he asked the man at the bar, a farmer. "I'm afraid so, yes," Tom answered, in English now. "Found 2 of my sheep dead today. Looked terrible, they did. Tongues gone, ears and noses bitten off. Never seen anything like it." His voice became quieter. "And no blood. There was no blood, not on the ground, not on the body." "It was probably just a fox or a dog, wasn't it, Tom?" the landlady said. Tom, the farmer, shook his head. "Oh, no," he said. "There's no animal on earth that kills like that." "It's the beast of Bryn Mawr," Richard told the landlady. "It's come back again." "Oh, come on now," the landlady said. "There's no such thing." "Of course there is," Richard said, smiling. "It's a werewolf. Everyone knows that. Half man, half wolf. Last seen on Bryn Mawr Hill 100 years ago." The landlady laughed loudly. Susie and Charlie couldn't help listening to this conversation. "I think I'll just have a cheese sandwich," Susie said quietly to Charlie. "Well, I'm going to have steak and chips. I'm really hungry," Charlie told her, and went up to the bar. "On holiday, are you then?" the landlady asked as she took Charlie's order. She seemed friendly, Charlie thought. "Yes," he answered. "We're staying up at Kinghordy House for a couple of weeks." "Aha! On Bryn Mawr Hill." She smiled and looked at Richard and Tom. "They'd better watch out for the beast of Bryn Mawr then, hadn't they?" Richard laughed. Tom didn't. "It's no joke," he said in a low voice. After lunch, Susie and Charlie went into the centre of Llandafydd. It was a quiet little village with only a few shops, a small supermarket, a post office, a tea shop, and a shop which sold presents for holidaymakers to take home. Susie wanted to look in the tourist shop. She bought a plate with a red kite on it. It was getting dark by the time they arrived back at Kinghordy House. But the wood fire was still burning, and the house was warmer. "OK, what are we going to do now, then?" Charlie said. He wasn't used to being on holiday. Usually he spent most of his waking hours at work, always on the phone, talking and talking, or on the computer. He never stopped moving. Susie began to put their shopping away in the cupboards in the kitchen. "I'm tired," she said after a while. "I think I'll lie down for a bit. Let's have something to eat soon and have an early night, shall we?" Charlie went outside to get in some more wood. The cold November light was beginning to go. Above the hill the red kites were still flying round and round. To the east, a full moon was rising slowly up into the night sky. Charlie was surprised to see that this moon was an orange-red colour, not the usual yellow-white. He remembered the words, "a hunter's moon," from when he was a child. Was this a hunter's moon? Chapter 6. Voice of the Beast.
Now I look from my window and see that the light is going from the earth. Tonight the moon will be up for most of the night. Its silver light will fall like soft rain on the woods and trees, on the tops of the hills. Soon I will feel the cold night wind on my face, the air moving through the hairs on my head and arms and back. I will listen to the sound of my feet as they walk on the wet earth and the grass. I will hear the small sounds of animals as they move quickly to get out of my way. I am going out tonight. You ask why? I will tell you. Some visitors have arrived. I watched them come through the woods. I saw them looking around in the strange new place. They are city people. Here they are unsure. They move carefully. Then later they were in the pub. Death has touched her with its cold fingers. I could see that in her eyes. Now she is afraid of the darkness that is following her. But also, there is something in her face that I know. I have seen that face before, I'm sure. Maybe in Greece, northern Italy. Maybe in a mountain village somewhere. She interests me. I cannot stop thinking about her. I want her to come with me, to be with me. I know she is ready to come into my world, but she does not know it herself yet. When I tell her, she will understand what she must do. But I must be careful. The time must be right. First, I will go and welcome her. Take a present. I must make myself ready. I walk across the room in the darkness to the fireplace. Daylight makes me weak and ill. The soft, silvery light of the moon is what I like. From the wall I take my belt. It is large and heavy, black and silver. On the silver there is the face of a dog, the dog that sits at the entrance to the underworld. I put the belt carefully on the floor in front of the fire. I get down on my knees and put both my hands on the belt. Softly, I repeat the words that I must say. The words are in a language no man or woman can speak. I feel the heat from the fire on my face. In the center of the fire, I watch my thoughts come and go. After a while, after all the words are finished, I stand up and put on the belt. Immediately my arms and legs start to feel strong. I look towards the blackening sky and give a wild shout. Then, in one great jump, I am gone from the room through the open window. The night is cold, but I do not feel it. I will not feel it until I become a man again. I touch the belt around the middle of my body. I will know what to do when the moment comes.
Chapter 7. The Present. It was still dark when Susie woke up. Looking at her clock, she saw it was 3 o'clock in the morning. She lay in bed in the darkness for a while, Charlie's warm body next to her. It was strange that she had woken so suddenly. Had someone knocked at the door and called her name, or was it just a dream as usual? Suddenly, her body gave a jump. There was a small noise at the bedroom window. Was something trying to get in? The noise came again, and again. "Charlie, there's something outside," she said. Her voice seemed very loud to her. What? Oh, go back to sleep. There's nothing there," Charlie said sleepily. Susie sat up. Outside, the wind had become stronger and was blowing noisily through the trees. She climbed out of bed and went to the window. Pulling back the curtain, she could see that a tree was moving against the glass. So it was the tree that was making the noise. Outside, in the light of the full moon, the trees and grass were waving and shaking in the wind. Anything could be hiding in the darkness. Susie put on the lights and walked round the house, looking into every room. There was nothing there, of course. It was just the house itself, maybe, moving in the wind like a boat at sea, which had made the knocking noise. She got back into bed, moved close to Charlie, and went back to sleep. When Susie woke the next morning, she could see the sunlight through the thin curtains in the bedroom. Charlie was asleep still. It must be late, she thought. She decided to get up, make some breakfast for both of them, and bring it back to bed. Downstairs the fire was nearly out. They'd used all the wood the night before, so she decided to get some more from the garage. She pulled on a coat over her nightclothes and put on some shoes. She went to open the door. Strangely, the door didn't move at first. Something seemed to be holding it. She gave it a pull. As the door opened, Susie heard herself scream. It was a strange sound which came from somewhere far inside her. She had never made a noise like that before in her life. "Charlie! Charlie!" She couldn't move. There was the sound of feet on wood as Charlie came running down the stairs. "What on earth is the matter?" Charlie said. "Oh, my God!" He saw the open door and the large and terrible thing on the ground, half in and half out of the kitchen. "Whatever is that doing there?" "What is it, Charlie?" Susie found it difficult to speak. "It's a dead sheep," Charlie replied after a few moments. "Listen, you go back to bed and I'll do something with it," he added. The sheep's body was not pretty to look at. The mouth was open. Charlie couldn't help seeing that the tongue wasn't there. The sheep was cut open from the throat down under the body as far as the back legs, but the cut was clean, and there was no blood. Looking more brave than he felt, Charlie took hold of the two back legs. He pulled the body out of the kitchen and then across the road outside the house and into the field opposite. "We ought to tell somebody about it," he thought. "The farmer, probably." He asked himself why the sheep was there. Did it just die there, or did an animal leave it by the door? He tried not to think about who or what had put the sheep there. Perhaps there really was a beast of Bryn Mawr. Anyway, he felt sick. He went back into the house, made a cup of tea and took it up to his wife. Susie was lying in the bed. Her pretty face, with her dark hair cut like a boy's, looked small and white.
God, Charlie, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen, she said. I heard some strange noises in the night, you know. I thought I heard someone knocking at the door. Do you think someone is trying to play some sort of terrible joke on us?
Susie, you mustn't think about it. It was probably just a fox or something. Maybe it decided it would eat its dinner outside our back door. Come on, let's try and forget it. We're here to have a holiday and enjoy ourselves.
Well, yes, okay, you're right. I'll try,
Susie said, but she could still see the cold eye of the sheep looking up at her from the kitchen floor.
Do you think the beasts of...
she began again. No, Charlie spoke quickly. I don't. Forget about it. There's no such thing.